Hi everybody and welcome to the What's New webinar for the latest release of Mission Control. Version 1.69 is going to be available as of the 30th of August 2024. So what we'll do is take a quick look at what's new, and then we'll dive into a demo. So there's a fair bit coming in this release. We'll cover it off quickly here, and then we'll talk about it in a bit more detail. So there's a new PDF coming where you can export the time logs as a PDF report for a particular project, adding in a better way for users to handle time logs and expenses that have been submitted for approval and subsequently rejected. There's a number of enhancements made to the Daily Digest, being able to apply filters to the project overview page, being able to exclude particular roles from holidays that have been assigned to teams that they're a member of. A number of enhancements to the scheduler, the meeting manager, the meeting notes PDF, as well as the project launch wizard from the launchpad of the Mission Control console. There's also some new warning icon fields being added to various objects, as well as some fields that help you identify the rate that was used as the source for calculating the financials on the time logs. The billing event PDF has had some enhancements around the time log and expense appendices, and a few minor enhancements that we'll talk through as we go through the slides as well. So first of all, the project time logs PDF. Obviously we've got our project status report already, but some customers don't necessarily want to share the entire status report. They just want to be able to send a PDF of some time logs. Now that might be all of the time logs for the entire duration of the project or for a specific date range. So you're able to customize the date range. You're able to generate the PDF, download it, and then share it with whoever needs to receive it. Time log rejections. So obviously, if you are using the approvals process, you would be submitting your time for approval. Those time logs would get hopefully approved, but if they get rejected, there was previously no way of identifying that without proactively going to look. So now we've made it a lot easier for the person that's submitting that time to actually be able to review, revise, and resubmit. So there's a notification included on the Daily Digest. There's a new tab that's been added to the timesheet. So if you have any time logs that have been submitted which get subsequently rejected, you'll see a rejections tab on the timesheet. You'll be able to go through, make the revisions, and then resubmit. And there's also a rejections list view on the time log tab directly as well. Similar on the expense rejections, so there's a list view that will show you any rejected expenses that you have. There's a notification in the digest, again, obviously just making adjustments to those records and then resubmitting them. So as I mentioned, there's a number of enhancements to the Daily Digest. Previously, it was really focused in on actions. What it now includes is, as well as actions, it also includes information on checklist items, risks, and issues. You get insight into, as well as insight into the total hours assigned to a piece of work. You also get insight into how much of that has been assigned to you as either the action owner or contributor, and obviously that rejection summary I just mentioned. So being able to see any rejected time logs, expenses, or holidays you might have. So on the overview tab of the project overview, within that work breakdown structure table, you now have the ability to apply a filter on there. So those filters can be persistently applied across all projects that you look at. So for example, you might say, I only want to look at actions where they are still planned or in progress, where I am the action owner, or where I have a checklist item relating to that, or where I am a contributor. So for example, removing everything that's on the project that has already been completed and doesn't have anything to do with me. Holiday exclusions. So we've now got the ability to either manually remove someone from a public holiday or automatically remove them. So, for example, let's say you've got a public holiday, you've assigned that to a particular team, and there's a member of that team who, for some reason, they've got too much work on, and they've chosen to come into work on that day, and they've decided that they'll take a day time off in lieu in a couple of weeks. So you're able to manually exclude them from that one individual public holiday. Alternatively, you might also have a team that comprises of internal staff as well as subcontractors who might not be entitled to those public holidays. So you can configure their role record to automatically be excluded from those holidays when they're assigned to those teams. Number of scheduler enhancements. So previously you could only create actions from the scheduler. You've now got the ability to create holidays as well. You've also got control over how much information is displayed on the holiday. So obviously, previously you could go to the scheduler and see all of the details for everybody's holidays. Now you can only see you can choose to only see the details of your own holidays, and either display generic messages or completely hide the messages, and you'd purely see that they weren't available. You've also got the ability to reschedule contributor assignments. Previously, you could only reassign those. You couldn't actually drag left or right to reschedule. So now you can, providing they stay within the confines of the action that they relate to. And you've also got the ability to control who has access to which tabs and buttons on there. So things like the timeline and month tab, the various views of things like financials, hours detail, hours total, as well as when you click into the action, you can control which tabs they have access to there as well. So that's all controlled on the individual person's role record. Number of enhancements to the meeting manager. So previously it was always used as a standalone tool. Now you can relate a meeting manager to a project, which means you can also add that meeting manager component directly to the project page within Lightning. You can also collapse the left and right hand sections, so the list of meetings and the log time component, they're collapsible, and that's persistent. We've also added on the task comments field to the quick create, just to make it easier for you to create and include additional information on the agenda tasks. Similar to how you could convert the agenda task to an action, you can now choose to convert the agenda task to a checklist item instead. You've also got the ability to create your agenda items very quickly. So if you are relating your meeting manager to a project, you can quickly create the agenda items based on the milestones that you have on your project. And similar with the attendees, rather than adding each attendee individually, you can now multi-add members of a particular team, or you could actually add your project stakeholders as well. You've also got the ability to archive meeting manager records, so you can't see them in the lookup field on the meeting manager component. And there's also a logic being added that will perform a cascading deletion process. So for example, if I delete the meeting manager, it will delete the related meetings, attendees, and so on. If I delete an individual meeting, that would also delete the related attendees and agenda items and so on. Few enhancements to the meeting notes PDF. You're able to customize the title, so you can see there on the screen where it says meeting notes. You can provide a more your own generic description there. You can also choose to left, center, or right align that header section, and you've also got the ability to control whether you display the attendees and whether you include the comments on the agenda tasks as well. So the project launch wizard, this is the component that is available from the launchpad of the Mission Control console. Previously, it was out of the box and it couldn't be configured to add any additional fields. So if you had created your own custom field on the project object and set that to be a required field, that meant you weren't able to use the project launch wizard anymore because you couldn't access that field to set it before creating the project. Likewise on the milestones as well. So we've made a couple of enhancements to this. So any custom field that you add to the project or the milestone that is made required, they will automatically display. And you can also further add additional fields via field sets that have been added to the project and milestone. So you've got a lot of options around customizing the launch wizard to make it usable within your own business process rules. So you'll be familiar, hopefully, with the red and yellow warning icons that are available on things like the project overview, the whiteboard, the Gantt chart, and so on. So we've had customers ask that they be available throughout the system. So, for example, on like the record detail page, the related list, and so on. So we've added two fields, one for the start date warning icon and one for the end date warning icon. We've added those to the project, the phase, the milestone, the action, and the checklist item. So they're fields now on those objects, so you'll have access to them on the detail pages, on related lists, list views, and reports. So time logs. So you've obviously got a number of different options of how you can calculate the billable and cost financials. You might be using standard rates, role-based rates, skill-based rates. You might be using rate cards. You might be using role-based with rate adjustments. So obviously there's many different places that, depending on how you've configured the financials for the project, that they might that the hours might be sourced for the financials. So we've just added two fields onto the time log object, the billable hourly rate source and the cost hourly rate source. So they will allow you to identify for each individual time log what rate was used to actually source the financials. And then a couple of enhancements to the billing event PDF. Previously, the contact that the invoice was addressed to would simply show the person's name, so it would say Chris Walcott. Now it will include the salutation if that's been included, so in that instance it would say Mr. Chris Walcott. We've also added in field sets to allow you to customize the contents of the time log appendix and the expense appendix. And then some minor enhancements. So the expense mileage rate. So there's been a change to how that works. Previously, it was a field that was entered on the roll record, and all expenses that were related to mileage would reference that field. Now, obviously, over time, you might change that value on that roll record, and if that changes, it would retrospectively go back historically and change the rates for all of the existing expenses. So what we've done now is added in a mileage rate field on the individual expense record. So if that is so that will get populated automatically moving forward. So it will match the rate that is on the roll record at the time of creating the expense. And if you do want to historically go back and update your records, you can go back and populate that mileage rate field on the individual expenses. So if that field on the expense is empty, it will reference the field that is on the roll record. The field set on the log time component that allows you to add and customize which fields appear in that log time component have been updated to now support cross object field updates from the case object. So for example, if I'm logging time and I'm relating that time log to a case, I might also need to actually go and change the status of the case. So rather than having to log the time and then navigate to the case record to change that status, I can actually add that field to my log time component field set, and that will display the status of the case in that component, and it'll allow me to update that if I relate the time log to that case there. So really just aiming at making people more efficient and not having to go to multiple pages to perform actions that can all be done in the one place. The working day logic that exists on the action object has also been added to contributors and checklist items. the ability to collapse and expand the phases independently of milestones has also been added in. We've added in an error log object. So, for example, if a process has incorrectly not worked due to maybe a customer's added in a validation rule that's prevented a process from working, or they've added a flow that's caused an issue. All of those, all of the information from that error will be captured into that object. So it's really, it's primarily going to be beneficial to your system administrators and Mission Control's customer support team when you're logging support tickets to help identify the root cause of what might have happened. There's been a validation rule added to the project object that will allow you to ensure, so if you are trying to use the project status report, you do need to have the project owner field populated, so it ultimately doesn't let you schedule the project status report for that project if the project owner is empty. There's a couple of validation rules also been added to the time log object. One will prevent you from editing core fields on the time log if the approval status is already approved. So for example, you might not be able to change the hours if you've already approved it. Likewise, there's another validation rule that does the same. It prevents editing of those core fields if the time log has already been invoiced. For customers that are wanting to add the trackpad to their own Lightning pages, there's now a height attribute on that, so you can specify how high that needs to be. We've also added in, when you clone a project or use like auto generation functionality to clone a project, there's a source project field populated, which allows you to identify which project was used to clone this project or to auto generate this project. We've added the same functionality onto the milestone. So anytime you clone a milestone from another milestone or auto generate it, that source milestone field will be populated. We've had some customers that don't want to restrict their users from creating new milestones unless they're specifically cloning from a template. So for example, I might be a user that I'm not allowed to create new milestones from scratch, but I can go and clone from templates. So the validation rule is in place that prevents you from creating a new milestone unless that source milestone is populated. So that would need to be turned on if you want to use that. And revenue recognition, we've added in a polling setting. So for customers that have like a large data set and long-running projects, for the revenue recognition, you can adjust the polling, so the number of records that get processed in each process can actually be controlled via a new setting on the control pad. Okay, so that's everything that's coming. So what we'll do now is jump in and take a look at those major features in a bit more detail. So I'm going to start by looking at the new time logs PDF that's been added. So how to access that? You go to your project overview, click on the time logs tab, and you'll notice that there's a generate PDF button that's now visible. So when you click that, you'll open up this modal, and by default, what that will do is actually show you the start date will be the project start date and the project end date, or if you've ended up logging time prior or post the start and end date, it will extend to accommodate the default range of all time logs. Now, obviously, you can adjust that. So if you are just wanting to look at a particular week, so you might, for example, want to just share the time logs that you carried out last week or last month and share those with your client. I'm just going to leave it as my default there. So it's going to generate the report for the entire date range. So I simply click the generate button. So that will generate the PDF. It will include all of the time logs that have been carried out throughout that date range, and now obviously I'm able to download that and distribute it accordingly to whoever I need to send it to. So we've added in a new tab onto the timesheet that will help individual people identify that they've had time logs that they've submitted for approval that have now been rejected, and they need to do something with them to be able to resubmit them. So you'll see on the timesheet, if you do have some time logs that have been rejected, you'll see this rejections tab. Before I jump into that rejections tab, I'm just going to jump over to the daily digest to show you that. So there's a new section being added onto the digest that allows you to see any records that have been rejected that you've submitted for approval. So you'll see here that I've got some time logs that have been rejected. I've got some expenses and a holiday as well. So obviously that's just going to be a daily reminder for me to be aware that I've got something that's been rejected that I need to go into the system and update to be able to resubmit. So if I go to my timesheet, I'm only seeing the rejections tab because there are rejected time logs. So I can click onto that, and I simply see a list of all of the time logs that have been rejected, and I can see who's reviewed them and why they might have rejected them. So I can see here they're asking me to add some time log notes on this one, and they're also suggesting that I mark this one as non-billable. So I can obviously come in and make those changes. So I can go in and add some notes there. So I can just save that change. I can also come into this one and edit that and mark it as non-billable. Okay, so now I've made those changes, I'm ready to resubmit them for approval. So I can, if I only want to do the individual records, I can just click on the submit icon, and that will submit that one for approval and remove it from my list. Or if I've reviewed everything in one go, rather than clicking the individual submit icons, I could click the master icon, and that would go and submit everything for approval again. So obviously, hopefully I've made the right changes and I won't see them again. They'll just go through the approval process as normal. You also have the ability to look at you also got the ability to look at those rejected time logs on a list view. So you'll see here there's a my rejected time logs list view. So I can access that, and again that's just going to show me the same detail. So I can make the changes here and then resubmit for approval if I need to. So likely that you'll use the timesheet, but for example, if you're out and about and you don't have access to the timesheet, but you can access a list view, you could do that via your mobile app on the Salesforce mobile app, for example. So similar to the time log rejections, we've also added in functionality for you to easily manage those rejected expenses as well. So just before I jump through on this, we'll just remind you on the Daily Digest, your rejection summary is going to show you any expenses that you've submitted that have been rejected that you need to review and resubmit. So whilst we don't have an expenses rejections tab like you have on the timesheet, what you can do is go to the expenses tab and then go to the my rejected expenses list view. So that's going to show you all of the expenses that you've submitted across your various projects and why they might have been rejected. So again, you can come in and say, okay, well, I need to specify a source. So I'm just going to add my source field, and then I can resubmit that. So I can push that back through to submitted. So make that change, and that will remove that from my list. So I can then hopefully get that resubmitted and reimbursed. So you can make changes to each of the individual expenses based on the notes as to why they might have been rejected in the first place. We've made a number of enhancements to the daily digest. So previously it was only focused on showing you information relating to actions. So it will now include information about actions, checklist items, risks, and issues. So as I scroll down, you'll see that I can now see information around today's assignments relating to both actions and checklists. Any new assignments will show me anything from actions, checklists, risks, or issues. My upcoming deadlines now shows me information relating to actions and checklists, and then my outstanding will incorporate anything to do with actions, checklists, risks, and issues. Obviously, we've got our approvals summary and our rejections summary there as well. The other thing that we have added in, obviously, you used to get insight into how many hours were remaining and whether you were an owner or a contributor. We've also added in the amount of contribution you're making as either the action owner or a contributor. So in this example, you can see that there are 8 hours of effort scheduled on this, but I'm just a contributor, only accounting for 2 of those 8 hours. Now, you're also able to control what information is included in this now. So we've added in a number of settings on the control pad that will let you choose like what elements get included. So I'll just jump over there to show you. So there's new digest settings here. So you can choose to exclude the timesheet summary, which is just that summary at the top there. So for example, you might not be logging time in mission control, but you still want to have your digest information. So obviously you can just remove that section altogether. Otherwise, you could also choose to exclude any one of the individual objects. So you might choose to exclude risks and issues, so you could just tick those boxes. So ultimately, we're just giving you some control over the information that's actually displayed in the digest there. So on the overview tab of the project overview component, there's the work breakdown structure table, which shows you, your phases, your milestones, your actions, and your checklist items. What we've now added in is the ability to apply a filter to this work breakdown structure. So obviously in this example, I've only got 6 actions, so it's a relatively small project, but obviously you can have like hundreds and thousands of records on a project, and over time you might want to be able to filter things out. So for example, you might choose to filter out any actions that are already complete, or you might only want to see anything that you're responsible for. So whether you're an action owner or a contributor or a checklist item owner. So you can apply filters now by clicking on the filter icon. So that's going to open up the modal. Now, like most of our custom filters, you can create preset filters and keep those applied each time you come back to the page, so that you're able to create those as normal. So you can apply filters at the phase level, milestone level, action level, or the checklist item level. And of particular note, at the action level, you can apply filters that look at the action object, the checklist item object, or the contributor object. So as an example, if I'm looking to remove anything that is already complete and I only want to see stuff that I have an involvement with, then I might want to look at things where so for example, I might want to say only show me where the status equals planned or in progress. So I'll just add another thing there. So I'm going to say I also only want to see it if I am actually the action owner. So that will give me a list of actions where they are planned or in progress and I am the action owner. Now, I might not be the action owner, but I might be the owner of a checklist item that relates to an action. So I also want to include those as well. So I'm going to go down to the checklist item and apply a similar filter. So I'm going to say where item owner current user equals 1. And similarly at the contributor, so I might not be the action owner, I might not have a checklist item, but I might have been assigned as a contributor. So I also want to look at anything if I'm a contributor on an action as well. So you'll see it's building up the filter logic. So 1 and 2, it's obviously saying, show me actions where 1, status equals planned or in progress, and action owner current user equals 1. So that's going to give me a list of any actions where I am the action owner. On this logic here, I might actually, I have the ability to modify this. So I can say I want to see any actions where the criteria of 1 and 3 is true. So 1 being the status equals planned or in progress, and 3 being where I am an owner of a checklist item. So now I'll have a list of actions where the status is planned or in progress and I'm the action owner, or the status of the action is planned or in progress and I am a checklist item owner. And also the same as I've done on the checklists, I can do that on the contributors. So I can say I want to look at actions where the status is planned or in progress and I am a contributor on that action. So ultimately through this type of scenario, what I'll be able to get is a list of actions that are planned or in progress, where I am either the action owner, I'm a checklist item owner, or I'm a contributor. So I'm able to apply those filters. That will remove everything else from the project and only show me things. So I can see here I'm the action owner on these two, and I can see that I'm a contributor or a checklist item owner on these other records as well. So if I need to remove that, I just click on clear, and that allows me to go back to the full project plan. So in Mission Control, you have the ability to create a holiday, and rather than assigning that to individual people or making it a global holiday that applies to everybody, you can assign it to a team. So putting it into context, you might have a team, you might have a public holiday that only applies to a particular state or county within your country. So you might have a regional team that you've built up of the people that live in a particular state, and you create the holiday, and then you go and actually relate the holiday to that team. So you can see here I've got a public holiday on the 19th, and I've assigned it to my US team, and that US team has a number of people that are members of that team. So generally that would get applied to everybody that's in that team, and they would show up as being unavailable that day. However, you obviously have scenarios where you may want to exclude someone from that holiday. For example, let's say Seth is an employee. He's entitled to the holiday, but he's got work on with a pressing deadline, and he's chosen to actually work on that public holiday, and he'll take a day off in the future as time off in lieu instead. So what we've added in is the ability to exclude people from these team assigned holidays. So you can see here that I've created a holiday exclusion record for Seth. Now I've done that manually because this is a one-off, and Seth generally does take these public holidays that are for the US team. But just on this one occasion, he needs to work, and he's going to take that time off later. However, you might also have a scenario where there are people that are in that team that aren't entitled to those public holidays. So for example, you might have a team that comprises of internal employees and external contractors. And whilst the internal employees are entitled to the holiday, the external contractors might not be, so they work through. So rather than having to come in and create those holiday exclusions manually for those contractors every single time you create a holiday and assign it to that team, you can actually set up exclusion rules on their individual role record. So I'm on Mick Fanning's record here. So if I scroll down within the team assignment section, you'll see under the US team, I've now got a field here that allows me to exclude this person from any holidays that get assigned to that team. So whilst I manually created the exclusion record for Seth, the exclusion record for Mick has been automatically created. So any holiday that gets created and assigned to the US team, there would automatically be a holiday exclusion created for Mick in that instance. So just to show you how that reflects on the scheduler. So there's 4 people that are a member of the US team in this scenario. I've got Chris and Colin, and you can see that they've both got that holiday showing up on their schedule. Mick and Seth are also members of that team, and through their exclusion records, they're obviously not entitled. They're not taking that holiday, so they're showing up as available on those days instead. We've made a number of enhancements to the scheduler as well, so we'll just run through all of those. So first of all, previously on the scheduler, you used to be able to drag and drop to create a new action. So you could drag the area, expand the number of days, and then when you let go, it would open up the modal to allow you to create a new action. Now we've given you the ability to select whether you're choosing to create an action or a holiday. So if I go through and select action, that's going to give me access to fill in the action details. If I go back and select holiday, that will give me the ability to create a new holiday record instead. So it'll be a holiday record for that individual role. So just giving you the ability to create holidays from the scheduler. Now, in terms of the scheduler, you've also got in terms of holiday information. You'll see at the moment that each holiday, regardless of who they're assigned to, I can see all of the detail of like the name of the holiday, whether it was approved, the days taken, the hours taken. So we've given you the ability now on the scheduler to choose to whether you show all of the information, or you just show a generic display, or you choose to show nothing. So I'll just show you all of those settings. Obviously we've just seen the default, which is to see the full detail. If we scroll down to the scheduler settings, there's display holiday information, so I'm showing the detail at the moment. If I can choose to show a generic description. Now if I do that, I need to put in a value here. So I've put in resource unavailable. So just by changing the setting and setting this generic description, if I save that, and then I'll just refresh the scheduler. I'll just go back to where my holidays are. So you'll see now that, so I can only see the details of holidays that are assigned to me, but anything else, I'm now just seeing that generic resource unavailable message. The alternative setting is to say, I don't even want to see that generic message, just don't show me any information. So I'll just change to that one and just refresh again. Now you'll see, all I see is the coloured cell showing me that they've either got an approved or a pending holiday. So three different options there on how you might want like resource unavailability to display. So the other thing that you can do is you can now reschedule the contributors contribution to the action, providing that contribution remains within the confines of the action. So previously, I can see I've got a contribution record here. So what I could do is I could already reassign this. What I wasn't able to do previously was drag and drop to reschedule it against the existing contributor. So you can now do that. So you can actually drag and drop to reschedule, providing it remains within the confines of the action that it relates to. Now, so if I just click on save there. So that makes the change. So it's obviously a 2-day contribution against that. Now I can reschedule that. Now if I end up trying to reschedule it and it's outside of the action, you'll see I get a notification up in the top right. I'll just do that again. So I'll try and reschedule it to Monday and Tuesday, which means it's going to be outside of that actions time frame. So as I let go, it bounces back and it just gives me a message there that I can't reschedule that outside of the action. The other thing that you have the ability to do now is control whether someone has access to each of these tabs. So you can, on the individual person's role record, you now have some scheduler settings fields. So you can control whether they have access to the timeline tab and the month tab. So these are these two tabs up here. So you can choose to turn one or either of those off. You can also choose to control which views they have. So you've got the financials, the hours detail, hours total, actions, and projects. So they are these 5 fields here. So if no one ever uses the financials, you could turn that off for everybody. If you only want people to see hours detail and hours total, you can hide the others. And then the other options are within the actual action modal. You can specify a default landing tab, and you can also choose whether someone sees the action tab, the checklist tab, and the chatter tab. So if I double click on an action there, you'll see that I've got my action, my checklist, and my chatter. So I'm able to control which of one of those is my default landing tab, and I can also choose to turn each one of those off if I need to as well. So we made a few changes to the meeting manager. Main one is that you are now able to relate the meeting manager to an individual project. So when you're creating a new meeting manager, let's say you're on the launch pad of the console and you click to generate a new meeting, you're able to actually link this through to an individual project. So obviously that puts it as a related list of meeting managers on that project record. And what you're also able to do is, so I'll just show you quickly. If I go to the related tab, you'll see that I've got my meeting managers, so I can access those directly from there. I'm also able to add the meeting manager component in a custom tab via the Lightning Page Editor. So I'm able to select the individual meetings and use the meeting manager directly in context of that project record. What we've also done is added in collapsible sections. So you'll see if I go through and so I've got the left-hand section and the time logger over on the right. Now, if you need more space on your screen, you've got the ability to just toggle those to collapse them. So I've just collapsed the left-hand section, and I can also do the same with the time log. So if I just need to expand it, I just click that again. So that gives me the ability to just free up the space. So if I'm on a fairly large monitor at the moment, but if I was working on a laptop, I might need to free up that space, and I can do that there. So one of the other things that we've added on is when you're creating an agenda task, we've just made the task comments field available in the quick create. Very often you are finding that you're assigning the task owner and entering a name, but then you're immediately wanting to go in and add some comments. So it's just causing an extra few clicks. So by putting that there, you can create the comments at the point of creating the record. The other thing that you do have the ability to do is actually promote an agenda item to an agenda task to a checklist item as well. So I'm just going to quickly create an agenda task here. So now that I've got that, now you are always able to promote that to an action on a project. You've now also got the ability to promote it to a checklist item. So if I click on that icon, it's going to allow me to convert that to a checklist, the same way you could convert it to an action. The other thing that we've added in is, so when you're creating a new meeting, obviously you can create the agenda items by adding each agenda item in this agenda builder section and building them up manually. However, when your meeting manager relates to a project, you'll now have this create from milestones button available. So rather than me having to create the agenda items individually, I can just click on this button and that will create agenda items for each individual milestone that exists on the project. So just a quick way of building out your agenda based on the contents of your project plan. Similarly, over on the attendees, previously you always had to create the attendees individually by looking up each individual role. You can now go through and select a team. So if I'm looking for all of my developers to be on this meeting, I can select the team and then quickly select them all, or just those that I need to be at the meeting. So add those. And the other thing that we've added in is rather than just being able to link role records as attendees, you can now also link project stakeholders. So anyone that has been added as a project stakeholder on your project, you'll be able to quickly add those in the same way. So just quickly building up your attendee list based on team members and project stakeholders. Um, The other thing that we've added in is a cascading deletion trigger. So there's previously, if you deleted a meeting manager, it wouldn't be deleting the underlying meetings and attendees and so on. So we've now added in logic that if you delete the meeting manager, it will also delete the meeting, the agenda item, the agenda task, and the attendee records. Similarly, if you might not be deleting the meeting manager, but you might be deleting an individual meeting or an individual agenda item. So the records that sit underneath that will also be deleted as well, just as a part of housekeeping cleanup, really. We've also made a few changes to the meeting notes PDF that you can generate from a meeting within the meeting manager. They're really just minor features where you can control the branding. So there's two new settings being added into the meeting manager's settings tile of the control pad on the mission control console. So you're able to apply a meeting title override, and you can choose whether the title is left, center, or right aligned. So by default, it shows up with like the phrase meeting notes, and obviously the meeting and the date. So what I'm able to do is come in and put in my own override. So let's say I call it project update notes. If I go back and take another look, what that will do is override the meeting notes with the override value that I've added. The other thing that you can do obviously is left or center or right align the header. So I'll just quickly change that to center, and I'll just refresh that. So you'll see that the description has just been added at the top. Now that you can relate meeting managers to projects, what you're also able to do is choose at an individual project level. You have two new fields. So I'll just jump onto the project and show you. So there's two new fields. There's the hide meeting notes attendees list and hide meeting notes agenda task comments. So I'll just jump back onto the PDF. So right now you can see that it is displaying the attendees list, and it's also displaying the comments of the agenda task. So if I was to go through and set both of those to be hidden, and then I'll just refresh that. So you'll see my attendees list is no longer there, and the comments of the agenda task have been hidden as well. So you can obviously control that on an individual project basis. So we've made some updates to the project launch wizard on the launch pad. So you can see here, like when you're creating a new project, you can choose to come and create the project and the milestones using the project wizard here. So a few updates there. So if you are using multi-currency in your Salesforce org, your currency code will now appear on there. But this is pretty much the default layout. You're able to add the project name, the project budget. You can link it to an opportunity, and you can add these three fields for each milestone. So we've had situations where customers may have added their own custom fields to the project or the milestone object, and by making those fields required, they pretty much meant that they couldn't use the project wizard to create new projects because those fields weren't able to be added to this component. Therefore, they couldn't create a project via this component and had to go off and do it via standard UI. And equally, they might have, whilst they weren't required fields, they might have wanted to have some additional fields on the component. So what we've done is we've enhanced this to where if you add a custom field to the project or milestone and make it required, it will automatically appear on this component. And in addition to that, you can also add extra fields via a field set. So we'll walk through both examples. So I'll just close that back down, go to the project. So I've got a field here called type. It's a pick list with a few different values. Right now, the required field is not set to true, which is why it wasn't appearing on the component when we were looking at it a moment ago. So I'm just going to go through and make that field required. So set that to required. So if I now come back to my component and click that to open up again, you'll see that the type field has automatically been added because it's a required field. So therefore it's giving me access to it so I can enter my value and create my project using the wizard. The other way of so obviously it might not be required, but we might want additional fields on there. So we now have a field set called Project Launcher Project Fields that's available on the project object. So if I click through to that, so I might want to, for example, specify a category value. So if I add category on as a field within my field set and save that, and then if I open that up again, so I've now got the required field of type, and I've also got my field set field for category. So I'm able to surface optional fields via that field set. So the same rules apply on the milestone as well. So obviously any required fields will automatically be added, and then any fields that I add to the project launcher milestone fields field set, they'll also appear for each individual milestone as well. So you'll hopefully be familiar with the warning icons that we display on the on components like the overview tab of the project overview, the whiteboard, checklist board, Gantt chart, and so on. So these display either red or yellow based on the start date and the status, or the end date and the status. So we've had customers ask that, you know, they want to be able to see these outside of the core components like the whiteboard and project overview. They want to be able to see them on the individual records as well. So what we've done is we've added two new fields to the project: the phase, the milestone, the action, and the checklist item. And so they're now available for you to view directly on the page layout. So you can see I'm on my milestone, and I've got my warning icon start date and warning icon end date, and it's only showing up if the appropriate criteria is applicable. So that's available on the page layout. It also is available on the related list. So if I go through to look at all of the actions that relate to this this milestone, you can see that those fields can be made visible there as well. You can also view them on things like list view. So I'm looking at all of my actions, and I can see all of the warning icons applicable there. And you can also make them available in reports as well. So I'm running a report here by project, listing all of my actions and seeing my end date warnings there. So as I say, they're available on the project, the milestone, the phase, the action, and the checklist item. For those customers that use the financial element of Mission Control that tracks the billable and cost values associated with the hours that you're spending working on your projects, you'll be familiar with all of the various options that we provide around tracking those financials. So you might be using standard rates on your project, you might be using role-based rates or skill-based rates, you might be using rate cards, or you might be running a long project and you've added rate adjustments. So you've got different rates applicable to 2023, to 2024, 2025, and so on. So we've added two new fields to the time log object that will capture the source that was used to calculate the revenue and the cost for that individual time log, should you need to trace that back. So you'll see here on my time log, if I scroll down underneath my financial information, I've now got two new fields. I've got the billable hourly rate source and the cost hourly rate source, and this will tell me what source has been used to actually determine to calculate those financials. So anyone need, like if it if you've got a fairly complex project and you've got a lot of different rate adjustments and you're not sure that the rates were as you were expecting, this will help you actually diagnose that and determine which source was actually used. So the final update I want to walk you through is just a couple of minor enhancements that we've made to the billing event PDF. So where you're using a time and materials project, you might be choosing to include the appendices for the time logs and the expenses. So if I scroll down, you'll see I've got an appendix for my time logs and I've got an appendix for my expenses. So out of the box, these two appendices come with certain fields included. So for example, the time log appendix will include the milestone action, the date of the time log, the project member, the time log notes, the hours completed, and the hours completed value billable. So they're included by default, and on the expenses, we're including the expense ID, the category, the date, the expense notes, and the amount claimed. Now, what you're able to do is add or adjust the fields that are included. So there's a field set on the time log called billable event time log appendix, and on the expenses billing event expense appendix. So you can add fields to these two field sets. The thing to note on the time logs, the milestone and action will always appear first, but then you can add up to now obviously you can add a number of fields to the field set, but only the first 7 fields will appear, and it's only the hours completed value billable and hours completed value cost that would receive a summary, like a total summary at the bottom. As for the expenses, so you can choose what fields are included, and only the first 8 fields added to that field set will be displayed. And again, the only fields that would receive a summary total at the bottom would be the amount claimed, the ex-tax amount, and the tax amount. Okay, that's all of the major features that we're going to run through. So let's take a look at what the release schedule looks like. So as I said earlier, the new version is available on the App Exchange as of the 30th of August. We're going to be automatically upgrading that to all Sandbox orgs on the 14th of September, and then we'll automatically upgrade to all production orgs on the 28th of September. So, as always, I'd like to thank you for your time. Hope you're excited about all the new functionality, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future. Thanks for your time. Bye.